All right, here we go.
Yes.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hi, everyone.
How's it going? I think I'm sending my audio as well. There we
Yes.
go. Now we should be good. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this first episode of Open Projects, The Journey. We call it The Journey because it's going to be a long journey, and we're going to tell you why in a second. My name is Ciro Continisio, and I'm the head of creator advocacy for the EMEA region for games at Unity. And with me, there's Shema and Amel.
Hey everyone, I'm Shema. I'm creator advocate in the EMEA region as well.
Wait. I'm Shema. One second.
Wow.
We'll have time to introduce ourselves.
Okay.
Actually, you want to introduce yourself? I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I can start. So as I said, my name is Shema. I didn't change. I'm a creator advocate for the EMEA region. I started to work in the industry almost 8 years ago, 7 as a game developer and for the past year as an advocate. And I think that the first version I used of the editor was like 3.5 or something back in the day.
That thing, the first
Yeah,
version.
bragging.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Amel, what about you?
Yeah,
What
so
version
hello.
did you use?
Yeah, well, I would say version 4 when I was still at university, but yeah. So my name is Amel, and I'm also a creator advocate for the EMEA region at Unity. I'm based here in Copenhagen in Denmark. And before joining Unity, I was a student at engineering school in Paris. So I moved from Paris to Copenhagen to join Unity. And yeah, I have a couple of experience working on Unity with mainly when I was a student. So I hope that we have a lot of students here watching us today, and special welcome for you all.
Nice.
And my name is Ciro. As I said, I'm the head of creator advocacy at Unity. So Amel and Shema are in my team. And basically, a bit about me, I guess. I'm not going to say the version. I don't play this game. But I was a game developer, an indie developer before joining Unity. I made a couple of commercial games, and I was also a tester in my previous life at Electronic Arts. But now what I do is what I used to do, and what we used to do as a team is we used to travel the world to talk about Unity, to present about new features, and to connect with the community, right?
Right. Yeah. We used to do that.
We used to do that, yes. And because we
Things
don't do it
change.
anymore, we actually came up with this initiative that we're going to present today, which is the Open Projects, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
what is Open Projects? Do people know in the chat? I can't see the chat actually, but I'm curious to see, if you can put it just a yes or a no, if you already know what it is, and you just came to see the updates, or you don't actually know. We're going to give you a small introduction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we already get few yeses in
Wow.
the chat. Some people have no idea, which is also good because
It's good.
now they're gonna know more about it.
We're here for that.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I see a lot of
exactly. You're in the
yes.
correct place.
That's great.
So, shall I introduce the initiative?
Yeah.
Yes.
As I said, what's the point? The point is that we cannot travel anymore, so we can't see you all in events. We used to go around Europe mainly, and we went to all events like GDC, Gamescom, and stuff, and connect with the community. Now we can't do it anymore, so we thought, okay, what can we do? And obviously the first thought is to stream online and do talks, but then we wanted to give it a small spin, right? And so we came up with Open Projects. And what is Open Projects? So I'm going to start by showing a small video, which is concept art, while I explain what it is.
Yeah.
So Open Projects is an initiative where we, Unity, make a small game, starting with the first small game, together with the community, with you. And we do it in an open source way. So it means that everything we make is open and is accessible and is downloadable, but also modifiable right now. And we started Open Projects a couple of weeks ago. We did an announced trailer, and since then, people just jumped in straight away. There was a super, really good response from the community, and at that time we opened up the doors for this first project, right, which you're seeing the concept art for on screen. And when we opened the doors, we really had just very little more than the concept art. We had a Unity project already set up, but not much more. And I'll show you what we had, because we're actually still in the first phases. And I guess the concept art that you're seeing on screen, this is actually the main character right now that you're seeing. And I'm gonna stop on it for a second. So yeah, the first game is about this character, this pig character, which is like a chef, and he's a traveling chef. So he wants to go around the world and discover like new recipes, new tastes, new flavors. And this traveling takes him everywhere. And then for the purpose of this demo, we're going to this island where the chef has landed, and he's gonna join basically the island is running like a cooking festival, and the chef is there to impress the local head chef, which runs the cooking festival. And that's kind of like the story, which is very, very short terms. Shema and Amel, do you want to add some more details?
I'm actually looking at the chat to know if there are some questions. I think you covered almost everything, but do you want us to talk on how to get involved on the project?
Yeah, of course. No, I meant about the story, if you had some more details to add that I forgot.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Not that I recall. For now, I think that the story is being reworked, if I understand.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So basically, we started with a story for this game, which was a very, very small draft, I would say, because we wanted to have something, right? But we presented it on the forums, and already we have changed some details. We received some, some feedback, some good feedback.
Yeah,
and so we
totally.
made some changes, and the feedback was really correct. And I invite you to go and read the feedback on the forums. There's a thread about that called Dialogue and Narrative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the awesome thing with having something that is collaborative, is that you have some insight that you couldn't see while doing it alone. But if you have some other people that contribute, you have another perspective on the matter. So that was really nice to have.
And for us, it was kind of like an act of balance, I would say. At the beginning, I was really, unsure on what to provide upfront and what to let the community create instead. So we really had to kind of walk this very, very thin line and say okay, we give some story, but at the same time, we let people give feedback on the story. And the story thread in particular is exploding.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that's actually
Exactly.
It slowed us down a little bit, right? Because now that we're reworking the story, we had to stop art production. We had to stop some programming tasks as well. But we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there, and having people that contribute, as I said, is giving them the possibility to be included in the story more than just in the coding or in the end product. Is being included in the story. So this is really, I think it's really good.
Yeah,
definitely. Shema, do you want to give us an introduction to the actual? I explained the story, but where does this project live?
Well, actually, this is a great question. It's simple, really. We try to plan this project the same way you do in a game development project. And the starting point was to create a roadmap for our project. So to do so, we used Codex. I don't know if you can open it, Shiro, for us to check.
Mm-hmm.
It's.
One second. There
we go. So it's a great project management tool. It's based on cards and decks, and it allows us to create a public and clear roadmap for everyone to follow. So each deck represents a part of the project. Some of the decks are for documentation, for example, the README and the game design wiki. We can see those cards here. Also, Game Flow and Game Element are decks that contain macro tasks that represent states for the game, for example, locations or menus. So when we open them, we find cards that are hero cards that contain subtasks. So if we open, for example, the cards that are linked to a hero card, we will see that it contains some subtasks. Some of them are done, so in green, and some of them are being done. If we click on the card, we can see the description on it. If we go for up for discussion, for example, the up for discussion deck contains ideas and topics that we'd like your input on. So the first one, I think, is the game title. If we click on the game title, we can see a link to the thread. We can click on the link.
Should I click it?
Yeah, just to see a bit, to see where we are for the title. Yeah,
this is my favorite.
We have a
trend.
lot. Yeah, we have a lot of inputs on that. We can go back to the roadmap now.
Mm-hmm.
So the other decks. So for example, we have the bugs, which contains the list of the bugs.
Just to mention, for example, the game title, we're also kind of stuck because we're still defining the story, right? That's why we haven't closed the discussion yet.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Also, the other decks that, for example, the decks that are with the color green are the decks that contain tasks in the form of cards. So if we open the deck for code, we can find each card representing an action, a task, that has a description with a link to the thread that represents it in the forum. It will also be assigned to someone, either to the community or to someone from the Unity team. So you can see the icon, the blue icon is for the community, and the black icon is for someone from the Unity team. If a card is assigned, it will be in bronze, in golden, the golden color. And if it's already been worked on, it will be in blue. So if you want to work on something that hasn't been assigned yet, you can look for something that is in gray. It has the gray bar on the bottom. And that means that this task hasn't been assigned to anyone. So you can start to work on it, start a discussion on it, on the threads, or start to work on it. We will see later how to start to work on that.
And I want to say one thing, Shema. I don't know if you wanted to say it after this, but the blue cards, right, the ones that have the community icon, that doesn't mean that you cannot work on this task. Because how does it work? You know how it works, right, with the assignment.
Yeah, of course. So it can be assigned to someone, but and if it's assigned, you can participate to the discussion and try to participate to the solution that is in the thread, in the forums. I don't know if you want to add something else, Chiro, about this.
No, I mean, that's, you said it right. I mean, there's the way we see the participation to this project is not just to, anonymously jump into a task and make it on your own. But it would be lovely if you could jump instead in the thread and have a discussion with the other members. Because, it might be that maybe there's a, miscommunication kills projects. So if you can communicate with the others, then it would be amazing. And as we were saying, so the idea is that basically two people or two or more could actually work on the same task and, kind of come up with different solutions. And then we have the very difficult task to choose which one to pull in.
Yeah, exactly. And when a task is finished, the card becomes green and it's repositioned in the release deck it belongs to. So the last two decks, the ones with the number of the version, contain the finished task, the finished card. As you can see here, I can treat them. I think
this is the initial concept art.
It's the concept art, and it contains all the cards that have been finished when we release the public reveal.
And these are the ones that we're working right now, right? This is kind of like the next
exactly.
release.
Yeah, exactly. So right now the current game flow is blocked. As you can see, there is an icon in the game flow. It means that there's a problem there. There's a block there. You can open it, and we can find that this card is blocked because we are reworking the story. But for now, it contains the game flow for the previous story that we have. So if we open the link there,
and
we
just
can
one
go.
second, Shema. Just one thing I want to mention. Cards also have conversations.
Of course.
So in the conversation, we will leave some notes about the card. So for example, this is telling you that this particular card is blocked because of, and then it links to other cards and stuff. So you can also follow kind of like the evolution of some tasks.
Yeah,
and you will
exactly.
see cards that have conversations. I mean, that was a blocked one, but usually they should have an icon. But maybe they only have it in. Maybe they only have it in the private one. So you were saying the link.
Yeah, so I was saying the link for the game flow, you can open it and it will bring you to Miro. We are using Miro to represent the game flow. It represents the logical states as moments. I don't know if we opened the right link.
It's a good question. Let's try it.
So if we open Miro and we go to our game flow representation, we will see it has, I think we should.
I don't know. Seems like Miro is down. Miro decided that there's not time to
awesome. Thank you, Miro. We will see it later, maybe if it works.
It's loading.
Yes.
Working. Nice.
Now we see much better.
Yeah. So as I said, it contains the flow of the game. So for example, you can have moments, you can have places of the game that you can see. So for example, here the game begins, then we have the initial cinematic, and then we go to tutorials, and it triggers something else, and we follow the logic until the end of it. We have also, I think there is the UI flow here also in the top.
It's here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we can see the flow between the screens that we will have. But also, I think there is another part in this Miro graph with the positions.
The physical location, yeah. So
the physical location, yeah.
Basically, while this part here is more like the logic of the game, so it's like kind of like the story, right? And in fact, you can see that it has more or less a linear progression. This is not a game. This is not an MMO, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this one is the physical locations. And I want to precise. So, for example, this one would be forest environment. And this means that it's connected to this other environment. But I want to precise that because we're reworking the story, this structure is kind of old, right? We
exactly.
want to redo it from scratch once we have the story set in stone.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be one of the cards that we can create again, but like we already have the card for the game flow, and it's being reworked with the story right now. So we can see another card again just to check the threads, the link to the threads. So let's open a card in the code.
Yep.
The first one. Yeah, so every card will have a link to a thread in the forums. The thread will be marked official. That means that it's linked to a task, and everyone can contribute to the discussion. As we said, even if it's assigned, you can participate to the execution. This helps us gather all the information about the subject in the same place without having to go into separate threads. But in addition to those threads that are marked official and that are linked to cards, you can also find suggestions or queries or contribution that are not in the roadmap yet, that we can add later, and we can add the label official to them later. Now, once we have this, once we have the thread, once we are discussing it, how do we contribute?
And 1 second, Shema, there's a question from the chat actually that I wanted to address right now. Somebody was asking, in the case of audio, it's all assigned to someone in the Unity team. And they say, will that change? And this kind of like brings up the discussion on these very fundamental tasks, which I wanted to actually briefly mention. Yes, that will change. We want to open up like every aspect of this game. The reason why audio is assigned to the Unity team, and actually, let me share. this one. And also you will notice in 3D and shading, you have a bunch of like 3D models specifically for the main character assigned to the Unity team, is because we wanted to kind of give a direction to the project. It's gonna be very challenging if we kind of like open it up from the very beginning, and then, 10 people want to make 10 different characters or have a different idea of the graphics for the characters. 5 people make like different audio themes. So we want to give a little bit of direction to the project, and then we're gonna open up the contribution to these very fundamental things like sound and graphics. So that's the reason.
Yeah.
And then other questions.
Yeah, do we?
Yeah, is there any age restriction to the contribution?
Good question. I don't know. I think this goes with the age restriction around Unity. Like Unity does have an age restriction, which is specified in the Unity guidelines. So when you download Unity, it has some guidelines for downloading, and I think that also applies to this project. Like the project itself doesn't have any age restriction, but if you're creating a Unity account, then you have some which are specified in the guidelines.
Okay. Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Yeah. So actually, I was about to ask ML how to. I was about to ask ML how to
contribute.
Use GitHub and how to contribute. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's the time to, once you set up, as Shema mentioned in Codex, you choose the card you want to work on. And you also mentioned that in the thread, so you can start discussion with other people that are interested also in the same task. We get to this interface, which is the GitHub repository of the project, and where the project is actually open for everyone. Carol will put the link in the chat so you can access this. You can also access it from the threads or from Codex. And here we have a preview of the README file. So I just wanted to mention the contribution guidelines document that maybe Ciro can open quickly to give you an overview. So here there is like in details, like the contribution guidelines if you want to go through it, but I'm going to give like a glance now somehow how to actually contribute on the project. So if you want to start now, what do you do? So let's go back to GitHub. And first thing that you need to do, Ciro, is to fork this repository. So there is the fork on the bottom, on the top, on the right.
What does
so once
fork
you
mean?
Fork fork means that you have like your own copy. So instead of Unity Technologies on the top next to the open project, it will become your username or your GitHub username next to the project. So here, if you open your copy, I would say, or the one you forked, is going to be Ciro Unity, I believe. Yeah, open project. So now you can make any changes and then push them to your repository. So for instance, let's modify the README file, something maybe easy to do now. Yeah, let's say like, hey, everyone, we are streaming now. It's live. Like any...
Live. Yeah.
Yes. And now you can choose the commit message, etc. You can use, of course, any GitHub tool that you use usually, like GitKraken or SourceTree, or there is also a desktop version of GitHub. So whatever tool you are using or command lines, feel free to use it. So now we have this change. If we go to the commits of your Git repository, Ciro, we should see this appears as like one of the latest changes. Yeah. So if you press code on the top on the left to see the commits of your repository, all the commits of your Git repository. Sorry. So here you can see that you are actually ahead of the branch you have forked from, which is the one that we have in Unity. So let's say you made this change and you are sure you want to show this to the rest of the people in the project. You can do what we call a pull request. So here you are like asking us to merge the changes that you have made in your forked repository into our repository, which is accessible for everyone. So you need to do a pull request first.
And of course, I need to sign in 75 times.
Yeah, this is quite like the usual
Which
thing.
is the thing that I didn't want to do, but it's inevitable.
Yeah. And now what you will do actually is you will need to actually do the pull request and just wait, basically. But just to go through this comparing changes, as you can see, here you can choose from which branch of your Git repository, you are like sending your work to which other branch of the other Git repository, which is the Unity one. So here we are sending from master to master, but if for some reason you were working on another branch, for instance, the scene loading or whatever other feature, you can, it's totally flexible and you can choose the branch that you want. So yeah, let's commit it maybe
and
from
actually
the master.
you will notice here that sometimes it will tell you that you can't automatically merge if you make changes that also kind of like overwrite what something else has written.
Yeah,
but anyway, but this is just a very simple example. I could potentially do it this way and then create a pull request, right?
So now you just create a pull request and you can see that you have like some text already written for you. That's like a template that we created that asks you some like basic questions like, what are you trying to achieve with this pull request, or what issue did you try to solve, or this kind of things. And it's super helpful for us, to be able to like decide why this pull request was useful. You can also put pictures, screenshots, links to the thread, for instance, that you have worked on, etc. So here, once you have this ready, you just press, you generate your pull request and it is done. So now you just wait. And I want to show you what happens actually behind the scenes. So for us, Unity, what do we see? So we see this list of pull requests, which you also can see. And let's take any other example, like Chiro.
So these are all changes that people sent, right?
Yeah, these are all changes that people sent and want to
we
merge
have 46
into the file.
Closed.
Yeah,
and 17
still open. Yeah, let's open one just to see.
We need to take a look at some point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I will see. I will mention why. Actually, it takes a little bit of time because every change you guys submit and we approve it in our in the repository, which is like the repository for everyone. This will everyone who clones the project or forks it, they will get this version. So we always try to be as much careful as possible to avoid having bugs later that will somehow impact all the users. So that's why it takes some time. We're sorry, but this is how it works. And sometimes, as you said, we have a lot of different solutions and we need to somehow see which one maybe fits better. And as we said, it's always better to work to see if someone already started working and work with them in the thread so we can have one final solution. So this is a good example of actually state machine implementation. So here we have pictures, we have description of what we exactly we are trying to achieve. You can see also we have comments. So other people, not only people from Unity, other people can comment on each other's pull requests and can actually, give some feedback, suggestions. And yeah, the discussion is always open. And this is one of the great things about the open project. Yeah. Looks great. It is everything looks great in the project.
I'm very excited today.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So yeah.
And this is where we basically can approve it or not, or provide some feedback to you, and the discussion goes on until we then decide whether to merge it or close the pull request.
Yeah, totally. We take some time to test this in the engine and make sure that everything works, etc. And in the contribution guideline, you can see more about what is allowed and what is not allowed. For instance, I don't know, you can't add new packages or change the Unity version, etc. But all these, you can find in the details in the guideline. Also, I wanted to mention, if you want to see the different steps of the contribution in details, you can see the video that Dapper Dino, our friend, made, and it has a thread in the Unity Open project. Yes, if we can show it quickly, Chiro, that would be great. Yes, so you can see in details if you want to look into that.
It's just called How to Contribute Video Guide. And it's pinned at the top. It's a really good video that guides you through the whole process in a very quick way.
Totally, yeah. It shows you how to do everything from the commits, from everything. So that's really a good way and more details than what I said now. Mm-hmm. So you can watch it. And now, Chiro, you might ask me a question. If I'm not a programmer or I'm not a 3D artist or, I don't have no assets to contribute, how can I say? Yeah, you can do something, actually. You can do a lot of things. Actually, even people now in the chat, they are helping. They are here, to give ideas, to give feedback. And that's people are already contributing by doing this. But one thing I want to point is, for now, maybe we don't have a first version of the project yet, but probably in a few months, 2 or 3 months, we'll have a first version. And you guys can test it and can see if there is any issues or something you find not comfortable in the gameplay. So you don't have to have any technical, knowledge or skills. You only need to test it and say, oh, I saw this issue or this problem. And then when you notice this, you can go to the GitHub. So if we show the GitHub again, Ciro, you can find this tab called issues. Yeah. And let's open the first one. It's a good example, actually. Camera can clip with, yes, this one. And you can see this is an example of an issue where we show the behavior and how to actually reproduce it. We have a screenshot, like this is perfect. This is like a very good example of how to open the issue. And maybe let's try to open one, Ciro, now. If we go on the top. Yeah.
You want to create an issue.
I want to create an issue now. And here again, you can see that we have this text already made, which is the template that asks you a few questions, like what's the issue? I'm causing trouble. And yeah, asking you like how to reproduce it. You can put screenshots. And you can give all the details that can help us actually reproduce it and make sure that we can solve this. If you go on the right, Ciro, there is also labels. I love this one. Yeah, the labels one. Like you can decide which one is like it's a critical bug or it's minor or if it's just an enhancement. So we can know actually which tasks to prioritize or which issues, to work on first and try to solve them first.
And by the way, actually, this description comes, this kind of like template comes straight from my experience at EA when I was a tester.
Oh, this
certification tester. Yeah, I kind of like reuse those steps, and this. One of the points of the bug reports at the time was that you want to be concise. Like you don't want to write a lot of details that are like repeating the same thing over and over again, because obviously you might have a lot of bugs to read, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this one goes like straight to the point, which
I think
I really like.
The three words were concise, precise, and standardized. Those were the like three slogans for the
It's like pro tips from Ciro. I love this.
Anyway, Amel causes trouble.
Critical, of course. How can we reproduce this?
Somebody added an issue right now.
Oh, that's great.
Rename default branch from master to main.
Okay.
We'll take a look at that later.
We'll take a look at that later, totally.
This is how interactive this project is.
This project is super interactive. And I love this because, it's like sometimes you start working on something and then you see something pop up. I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing this with other people and they see me and I see them. That's really great.
I'm thinking we should really get away from the GitHub before somebody writes some, some very weird thing on screen. You were too late.
Too late. Yeah, we can maybe check if we have any new questions in the chat, or I can see like folks are super excited here.
I think I have some questions. Someone asked about the version variations. I think that we have something in the guideline that we don't change the version, we use only one.
LTS.
That person is a genius.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why. Because you give me the chance to specify that. Or do you want to do it, any of you? I'll give you the full screen.
No, you can.
Go on, Ciro. You volunteer.
Yes, the version of this project is 2019.4 LTS, long-term support, and it's gonna be like that. It's not gonna move. We're not gonna update to 2020. The point is to stay on a stable version that is good for production. So, because we want to simulate the experience of making like a full game, we also want to simulate what a company will do, which is not like be on the latest beta, but like stay a little bit behind and take this more stable version. To be fair, some companies do use betas in production when they really want something which is like bleeding edge, right? Like a new package or a new feature. But here we don't. Here we're trying to do something which is kind of like classic in a way. So 2019.4 is perfect for us. Right now we're in 2019.4.11. 11. And there's a new patch that came out like yesterday. So we're going to upgrade the project soon. But please don't upgrade the project. Don't upgrade packages. We'll do it. Otherwise we'll have like a million PRs open.
Yeah, exactly. I have another question. Someone asked, what can I learn from this? What skills can I improve by this?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Do you want to answer, Shema?
You can learn everything. Actually, Ciro, I think you have a better answer to this.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. It is true. You can learn everything. So what that means, I think it means that you can take it as a programming. Sorry?
Yeah, exactly. The project has a lot of different features that can be developed. And if you are interested by anything, you can develop this feature or the other feature. You can participate in other people that are developing. You can see the execution of other people. Like ML showed, like you can see the PR of other people and things like that. So there are so many features to learn from this open project. We will have, I think, Chiro, one stream per 2 weeks with a new feature explained each time.
Yes, and I want to add that, every aspect can be educational. Like even the discussion that goes on the forum, about why to choose one solution, why to choose another solution. And if you see it in real time, then you see it evolving, and you understand, like, the reasoning behind these decisions. And I want to say, and I want to hope that in a couple of months we will have made some change to the project, and then maybe we will have reverted it. So sometimes we will take some decisions, and for some reason we will look back and say, like, what, that wasn't the best decision, and we change it, right? Which is something that happens in production sometimes. And obviously has like a higher cost the furthest you go in the production. So we will try to be very careful. But I think this is a kind of like a safe space to experiment in some way, because this is not a commercial game. So we don't have those restrictions that and timelines that commercial games have. So hopefully, to answer that question, like, you're gonna learn something from this and use it when you work on something commercial or your own project, your own hobby project, whatever. But there's many aspects to it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Moving
one
on?
last question.
Okay.
So there's a question about the initiative. Are you planning to do more open projects?
Yes, but let's see how the first one goes.
If you survive the first one.
I mean, if you survive. The initiative is called Open Projects, right? So it's plural. So yes, that's the idea. And also I want to touch on another aspect. Thank you for this question. These questions are perfect. The reason why we're doing this project as well is because we believe that we can't really offer a tutorial which is like higher level, like a more complex tutorial, without specializing it into one type of game. And this is the type of game we chose as the first game, but there's other types of games, right? My idea is to probably make a second game as a mobile game. That's the idea. And then a third game, and then we'll see, right? Like VR, we can... Don't make me... I'm not promising anything. We'll cut this one from YouTube. We'll cut it in post-processing. But yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. And for those who are asking about the Discord channel, there is a link, I think, that we can send you. I think there's a link in the thread. I'm not sure. Just correct me if I'm wrong.
A link in the thread? Which thread?
Or we will create the link in the thread.
Well, I think
for the Discord channel.
Yeah, we have a thread for the Discord channel, so I believe they can find the link there. And I think also Carol will put it probably. Yeah, she just put it in the chat, so you guys can find it in the chat now.
Otherwise, I really suggest you to look at the forums. And if you take a look at this thread called News and Updates, there's usually this kind of stuff. And exactly, Carol linked the Discord channel. So through this thread, we're gonna give news every now and then. As you can see here, when we upgrade Unity, and kind of like milestones and important events. So just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we also have another question, Chiro. So the question is, will there be documentation on the organization of code and assets? I'm assuming pull requests will be rejected if they don't conform to some standard. And I believe we have a document, for this, right?
Yes, which is linked.
Yeah.
Where is it linked?
Yeah.
In the forums.
Yeah, in the forum it's linked, I believe so.
Yeah, that's a good point. We need to link it in the README of the.
Yeah, we can also. Yeah, maybe we should add this as well in the README file for the Git repository, and yeah, it should be there. But it's also in the threads on the forum.
Yeah, we will link it we will link it a bit everywhere. To be honest, we just made it, so it's not very well connected or visible.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Now that we know everything about this, can we see the project?
Sure.
Yeah, we want to have a glance at least of it.
All right. So let me open Unity and let's go here. So the project looks like this. It's very unappealing, I would say, for now.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, we're really working on the foundations. We are basically, again, laying the foundations, especially with code. And this is actually one of the first tasks that I started working on. It was the character controller. You can see the initial experiments with physics. Went really wrong. So that's what was literally the first task that I was working on. And this is the project that you can download now. So you'll see this scene, which is kind of like a playground to test the character controller. And if I press play and I give it some space, then you can start like testing the character controller by moving around. There's ramps, there's like little steps, and there's slopes. So you can like try to move up the mountain and you can't. And actually this is one of the things that was contributed by the community already. And there's also like a little bit of Cinemachine. You can like move the camera closer. But again, it's very, very rudimentary. I understand that this doesn't look like the most appealing, but that's how games start, right? So we're trying to get the foundations pretty correct.
Yeah, some people say you definitely need us artists. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we do. But wait 1 second, because I have a surprise for later.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that, as I was saying, like initially the character could just like walk up the mountain by jumping. And then one of the very first contributions we got was somebody fixed that bug. So you will notice that if I'm walking up the mountain and I try to jump up like this, then the character will like slide down and face the other way. So they implemented this like interesting sliding mechanic into the character controller, which was like quite cool. You see it if I walk down here, at some point he will start sliding down. And that's where you don't have the ability to jump. And this prevents you from jumping up the mountain. Actually, I want to point out there's still one bug open that somebody reported, which talks about like being able to get stuck on a surface like this. I'm trying to reproduce it right now, but I think it was fixed. The reason why I left the bug open is because, again, in tradition with so in line with the tradition as a tester, you don't just close bugs, because you don't see them once. If you do that, then you forget about them, and they will pop out 1 second before the release or something, right? So I prefer to leave a bug card open and kind of like keep an eye on it, and maybe every now and then test the bug, and then if I really, really think it's fixed, then we'll mark that card as resolved. Actually, when I was working at EA, fun fact, the bugs that had like a lifetime, right? And when the bug was open and then you will test something and kind of close it, as testers, we couldn't mark the bug as resolved. We will mark the bug as claim fixed. So it's like, we claim it's fixed, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is, right? And then they will run an extra test of a round of QA, and they will mark the bug as fix verified, which was another state where QA has kind of like put the signature and said like, yes, it is actually fixed. So I'm trying to reproduce the bug and I can't do it. So I'm pretty happy with the fix that we merged into the project. Nice.
Looks nice.
Awesome. We can claim it as resolved now.
I had a video. You're watching the video of, I think it's the fix that we implemented from one of the users, Stasio. and he created a very nice testing ground to check that the character would like slide down.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the very first contributions to the project.
This looks great. Can we take just a question, Ciro, before we move to the next part?
For sure, I'm here for you.
Yes. So we have a question: where can I find, or can I get the assets like the 3D models of the player and all? So everything is in the Git repository, so people should be able to like get them because it's open for everyone. But just saying that these are not the final assets, so we're gonna of course update them when we have like the real final assets. So this, you can get this version if you want of the project, of course, but we will also update those 3D assets for you all, so you can have them. And
actually, I don't know if anybody noticed, but those are those assets are coming from
the karting game.
The micro game, karting micro game. So you notice the tree and these like structures.
I use it a lot as well.
Yeah, so I just put them in here as a placeholder as I was prototyping.
Yeah. There's also another quick question is it possible to contribute if I'm still learning C#? I already know programming, I'm just new to C# and Unity. Well, yes. I mean, one of the goals, the most important goal, I would say, of this project is to learn. So if you want to learn, this is the opportunity, and just jump into the boat with us and go on.
Yeah, and also want to mention there's a very interesting activity on GitHub in the pull requests where other members of the community are reviewing other people's code. So sometimes we might not accept your PR. So you're kind of like your code doesn't make it into the game, but somebody else might give you a review of the code. So you learn also through that.
Exactly.
So it's a really interesting phenomenon. And I have to say, I'm really, really thankful to those users. I don't remember all the names and I don't want to make a list because then I forget somebody.
True.
Thiago Oliveira is one that comes to my mind. It's like he's been so active in the reviews. Super, super nice and super helpful to me and to us as well because it helps us, get rid of a few like wrong lines of code and mistakes that would have beaten us later on. Totally, so thank you so much for that one.
Yeah, thank you all.
Cool. Do you want to see something more visually appealing?
I'd love to.
I think so. I think that people want to see the something that is better.
Something that is better. That's how you're...
Yeah, better than the graphic there. I think that some other graphics, do you have that, Ciro?
Yes. I want to talk about the toon shading, which is another kind of like another front on which we started. Again, like character controller, and then on the other hand, we're working on the shading of the project. And
awesome.
The thing you're seeing here was me like making some early experiments, and we're going for a toon look, toon cartoony look. Some people call it ramped. You can call it in different ways, and it's basically the idea of having the lighting as 2 or 3 shades, and so instead of having a smooth transition from light to shadow, the transition is harsh and it's kind of like a painted line. Which you usually see in some cartoons and especially manga, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So here you're seeing a little demo of things that I was doing, but I can show you directly in the project. So let me open. There's actually several parts to this technique, and I really wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what I'm doing. And part of it is, let me go in this scene here. So this is exactly the scene that you were seeing in the video, and it's kind of like my playground. Here I have this series of spheres here to the left, which are, I think they're static. These ones are dynamic. And then you have a bunch of spheres casting static shadow on these ones. And then you have a series of like lights. So basically I was trying to simulate all kind of like lighting scenarios. You have mixed lights. You have some other lights which are so mixed with shadow, mixed with no shadows. And this is kind of like the testing ground, right? And then I was working on this shader, which basically has, this is for the character. And as you can see, this is a dynamic object. So if I move it, the lighting changes and the shadow follows. And this is trying to replicate really the style that we had in the concept
art.
Yeah, exactly. So thick black lines on the outline, lines on the inside, and then the shadows are like toon, as I said. And what else? And then the black shadow on the ground. So this really resembles, awesome. And I want to show you very, very quickly.
It looks like it's drawn.
Yeah. So that's the concept art, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then this is the kind of like the result. But actually, this model was a placeholder as well. You'll find it in the project right now. If you download the project, you'll find this model inside. And by the way, it's not rigged yet.
Will we find also this scene?
Yeah. Everything is in there.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a question in the chat. Sorry to interrupt, but just people are asking if you made this with Shader Graph, and maybe want to answer them.
And I wanted to give a small demo. So let me give you a small demo of how we made it. So if I select a character and I open the material and I click select shader, and I have here a character toon v2. Actually, let me show you something else first. So I did this process in steps. The thing that I was doing first was to try and recreate a shader in Shader Graph that will allow me to control lighting. And so for that reason, I created this first kind of like draft, which as you can see is called custom lighting. And this is not toon yet. This is not a cartoonish shader. This is just taking the lighting from the scene and putting it in a pipeline where I have full control over what I'm doing with it. So if you see here from the left, we have a custom function node which harnesses the main light of the scene, which is the directional, and kind of like sends this data off, right? And the lighting model is a dot product. So I'm working with the vectors, and where the light hits the surface is white, where it kind of like goes tangential, it's 0.5, and then on the other side is black, 0. And again, I take this data and I send it off to this thing which multiplies the shadows with the color of the light which comes from the node we saw previously. Here we have some additional lights. So this basically allows me to have all of these lights that you see here, right? The additional lights, which are not directional. And then we have real-time shadows on baked geometry, which means this character, the shadow that is casting here on the plane. And then we have baked GI. And then finally, we go to the final node, which is unlit. So this is not PBR material. It's not a PBR workflow. It's just kind of like flat shaded. But then because I do all of these transformations, I make it lit. And so this is kind of like the base thing that I started from. And then I kept like working on it and, you know, kind of like put, for example, an extra step in here. So if this is the shadow that goes to this node, before I use this shadow, I transform it and I make it cartoony. So if you open the character toon v2, 3, 2, 1, there we go. This is actually the shader that we're seeing in the scene. So it's not that much complicated, although I did use subgraphs to get rid of a bit of the complications. And basically the idea is the same, right? So here we have the main light contribution. Here we have the baked GI. Here we have the additional lights. And all of these are passed through a gradient. So you see here sample gradient, sample gradient, sample gradient for the baked GI. And so basically I have several gradients that I'm sampling. And with those, I'm creating the custom look that I'm looking for. So the main light, one gradient that goes from like white here to a certain shade of gray here, right? Then we have the shadow on the ground, which goes from white here to black here, right? So it just goes from like white to black directly, and you can see it here. Where is the shadow? Subtractive shadow ramping. There we go. This one, right? I can just say that this is like this shade of gray, save, and now it's a gray and it's not a black. So now you have
awesome.
full control over the lighting. I'll put
Interesting.
it back, save, go back, and there we go.
Yeah, totally.
And so forth, right? And then you have the additional lights. I want to show you how cute it is when we actually... what did I do here? Point light.
Yeah.
For some reason, the gizmo is decided to go crazy. But you can see how the point light comes in and creates an additional ramp on the character.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have the specular that comes in. The specular is this little spot here,
Yeah,
which is also ramped.
that looks great.
Still working on it, and
Yes.
grab the project and give us our input, like play around with it. And if you come up with a better solution, we'll take it. It's like,
Yeah.
again, open projects, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, Chiro, since we are talking about graphics, we have a good question here. Are we using HGRP or URP or known? So we are actually using URP, the Universal Render Pipeline. And this allows us, of course, to use a lot of tools like Shader Graph because they are compatible with the SRPs. And we didn't need to use HGRP for this project because the graphics that we have, we think that URP is just sufficient for that, I guess. Do you have anything to add, Chiro, maybe on this
I will
aspect?
add, yes.
Yes. And we have, how long will this project take? Which is another question.
We foresee a good 6 months of work. So we think that we will be done in March. And when I say done, we are talking about, let me put my big face on the screen. We're talking about kind of like, and don't get me wrong, this is not a full game. We specified it in many places. What we're aiming for here is kind of like create a vertical slice or
Vertical slide.
I know you love my.
Yeah, I love this move. But they
really
removed from the trailer. But yeah, Chiro used to show this in the trailer, but unfortunately it was cut. So I'm glad he did it live now.
We will have I can do it here actually. A vertical slice. Which you can see it as a small game demo, right? Like imagine you're launching a Kickstarter campaign, or you're creating something which you want to take to a game show and you want to show to publishers. That's what we're trying to create here. And so the finishing line, we hope to get there in around March.
And
by March,
yeah, sorry.
Tell me, Shema. Tell me everything.
The other question, actually, to continue on what you've said, is will we be publishing these games?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Let's see. If it turns out terrible, I will personally block the publishing, with my body.
Yeah.
But also with the same body, I will make sure that it doesn't. So yeah, we hope to do that. And then with that, we also want to credit everyone who contributes on the project. I'm actually maintaining a super long list of people who already jumped, on the code, on the art, but also people who review code and people who put issues in. You will all be credited. So we plan to credit everyone who kind of like puts their contribution in the project, because it's all important, right?
Yeah.
Amel, you mentioned the QA before. So towards the end of the project, we will do a lot of QAing, and some people will just download, not even the GitHub project. They will download the executable, and we will put an issue on GitHub or something.
Yeah,
and we will
just
credit.
to test.
Yeah, we will credit everyone.
Of course, yeah, totally. And I'm looking. Yeah, some people are also asking if we decided or not yet for the title. Guys, you are not late to the party. You can still contribute.
Yeah.
You can go to the thread and you can contribute and give your name suggestion, because as we said earlier in the stream, we are still making sure to fix the final idea of the game and scenario. So we will decide the name just afterwards. So feel free to go to the thread and suggest a name for the game.
And it's super honest. I don't even have an idea of what kind of title. Seriously, I haven't thought about it, and I don't have a favorite. The only thing I would say is that I want the pig to be named Hamlet. That's my.
Yeah, I saw
request.
that. Yeah. I saw
that's
this
it.
English. Yeah. We will try.
Otherwise, I'm out.
Yeah, I will try to
Okay.
take this in consideration,
out.
Chiro, when we
Bye.
review that. Chiro just disappeared, and It's like, come back.
So yeah,
again.
we should
Okay, that's
continue.
fine.
I'll just show you a few extra things on the toon shading. So where are we? Oh yeah, the outline actually.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The outline
Wow.
is also part of the shading,
Mm-hmm.
and as you can see, it's kind of like an extra pass on top of the toon shading. And I had a different scene to test it out. The outline is basically done by having the universal render pipeline output an extra pass with a texture that shows depth and normals. And I don't have a way to show the texture right now, but you will see settings, graphics here, that the renderer used in the pipeline, as you can see here, it has a depth normal feature, which is like a new pass which is outputting this texture. And I want to thank Alexander Ameye, who made a fantastic tutorial about it on I think he's on his website. So I took a little bit of that. This is also an open contribution, and of course he put it open as well. I didn't steal, not this time. And so with that texture, then we can create this outline. And if you see here, the shader actually has two values. One is called depth sensitivity and one is called normal sensitivity. So you can individually control how much the depth and the normals affect the creation of this outline. So for example, if I were to go all in with the depth, you will notice that places where the depth changes, like for example the bend on the head of the pig, create a black line. If I do the opposite, normals, then you will see the change only where the normals differ a lot. So for instance, here on the attachment of the nose, you see a line. If I go with the depth, you see no line, because this is not a big change in depth. But if you play with a little bit of both, then you get some really nice result. So we will need to tweak these a bit further. And yeah, and so when you use this one and you combine it with the other shader, so if I go back to the scene, toon shading, and I find the pig, in the shader that I showed you before, which is the final version, here at the end I have the outline contribution, which is multiplied on top of the toon shading, and that's the result that you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
And finally,
Yeah, and
say Shema, tell me.
actually, I wanted to remind everyone that they can find this project in the GitHub if they want to play around with the values, see the shader or anything.
Cool. Yes. And finally, I want to show you one final thing, which is some assets which just came out kind of like from the asset pipeline. We're working with some artists to create some initial assets. Again, we want to define the look, we want to define a direction, and once we have this direction, we can start accepting contributions on the art. And one of the things I'm asking the artists to do, and they really hate me for that, is like simplify. Like let's have only albedo, so that people can really like just make a model and paint a texture and then put it in the project. They don't need to go through any complicated pipeline. So that's my request. And as you can see, we have these little rocks, we have this tree, which we're still working on. And they also sport a toon shading, right? But they also have some extra details. Yeah. And then we have the pig. And you will notice that this is actually kind of like the final version. You like it?
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cute. I love it.
The other one was it was okay. I think it was nice. But the other one was actually done very, very quickly. So if I copy it and I put it in here, you can see the two cousins next to each other. I don't know why there we go. So this was the original one, which was pretty nice, but it was more flat. And this
Yeah, it
one
was
is
lacking some details.
Yeah, is the final
Oh,
one, which has
nice.
a bit more extra details, extra shading.
Yeah.
So it's really, really nice. And again, it just came in, so we're still rigging it. But I will push this to the repository pretty soon, and then you can grab it from the assets. So yeah,
Right.
this is the protagonist. This is the background. As you can see, it has no lines. It could have lines, but it has no lines.
Yeah.
And now it's not working. Ah, yes, outline thickness. Yeah, there's something
Awesome.
wrong. So that's
So
the idea. Yeah.
Awesome. So what are the next steps now?
The next steps. Let me think. Shall we show the roadmap?
Yeah, we could.
I mean, the next steps, I think, let me just give an intro, I guess. I would say, again, we've been working on the basics, on the character controller, on the style. We have art assets coming in, finally. So I think the next few steps for us is going to be starting for real on the art and, again, opening it to the community. So I'm going to soon push these assets to the repo. Sorry for the delay. And I'll update you on the forums about that, and then you can start to take them and kind of like dissect them and start contributing and making your own additions to the game, because we have a certain set of assets coming in, but we will need more. So it would be nice to have more. And I was thinking, actually, one thing that we didn't think about, because this is more or less like a cooking game as well, a set of kitchen utensils, right? It will be super cool.
Yeah.
Like pots and frying pans. I think they're gonna be super useful to decorate the environment, since we have a cooking festival going on in the game.
Yes. Totally.
And again, if you want to know what I'm talking about the story, which is accessible on the roadmap here.
Yeah. So we see now the roadmap, right? So what are you going to do now is show us like the current state, and then maybe talk about what's coming up next, right?
Yeah. So sorry, I wasn't showing the roadmap. I'm showing it now. So as I was saying, the next steps are these. We have next steps on the code as well. We are working on deciding what to do about the state machine. We have actually 5 or 6 PRs in flight about the state machine. Super good contributions. They're very complex, so they're taking me a while to figure out. But we have Pro Ryanator, Neon Age, Kay Castagnini also made one. There's a few of them. So now we need to kind of like decide which one to take in, and it's proving to be a bit challenging, because we really need to make sure that it works, that is also like a bit future proof. But we'll do that.
It's maintainable.
Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll start connecting the pieces, and we'll unlock more programming tasks.
Yeah.
But I do have some tasks that I can unlock right now. Should I do it?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Other cards to add.
I'll
Showing
do it.
in your cards. Oh, that's great.
Just give me 1 second.
While you are doing this, we have a question. Are we going to implement dialogue for characters? Yes, and there's a card. There are tasks for it. You can find them, I think, I don't remember the correct deck, but I think it's dialogue and narrative.
I think it's design and narrative, yes.
Design, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
So there are some dialogues, and there's already a thread open for that.
But the don't forget that the dialogues are inherently connected to the story, right? So because we're reworking the story, we haven't started with the dialogues yet. But I think we have a good draft for the story now, so you can actually go in and create some mayhem, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'll show you very quickly the private part of Codex, which is this one. So you see, this is the public one that you see.
Yeah.
And then this is the private, kind of like the backend that I use. So now I'm going to unlock a few tasks. And to do that, I basically hid them here in the as a, how do you call them, archived cards.
Oh.
So I'm gonna take and unarchive them. One audio system. I'm gonna
Awesome.
unarchive these ones.
White boxing,
One.
yes.
2 and
Great.
3. So white boxing, we're gonna work on that next. Now that we have a vague idea of the environments, we can start like white boxing some stuff. And then I wanted to also start working and discussing about skyboxes.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna unlock these ones. And then this is a bit explorative. It's about the icons for the inventory. Like what should they be? So I'm gonna unarchive this one as well. And then the game logo, I archived this before, so I'm just gonna unlock it again. This is a bit of a long-term task, I would say. So, you know, if we don't have the title, we're not gonna be able to create a logo. But we can start making experiments on the art style.
Yeah.
And then what do we have next? The UI wireframing. Shema, this is your specialty, right?
Yeah, I am happy to do this as soon as possible, actually.
So
I want to
I'll
start
unlock
on
that.
working on that. Do we have a thread for it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
I
I'll
created
discuss it with...
So it's linked
So
here.
Yeah, we'll discuss it with the community and see what they're expecting and yeah, things like that.
And I think that's
Also,
it.
I
We
think
don't-
it's
yes.
I don't know if we said it or not, but like I think it's good if we say that we don't assign the cards to a person. We don't assign a task to a person. We assign it to the community if one of the community wants to participate on it. So we don't say like you have to do it. It's just that if someone wants to contribute to it, we say that it's assigned to the community and we start a thread for it for everyone that wants to work on that.
Yeah, very good point. And yeah, it's something to keep in mind, right? We can't accept everybody's contribution. We will have to choose at the end, but we encourage, you know, making a few variations. And that's actually why I always point out, number one, discuss. So instead of like making you bring your discussion. Number two, make small things, because then you can see if, you know, if they make sense and if you, in some way, you also have a bigger chance to get in if you make a smaller thing. If you make a huge thing, then I and the team, Shema and Amel, we need to think about it for a while, you know. So the smaller you make something, the better it is for us to, the easier it is for us to approve it. It's not, you know, it's not any kind of threat that I'm doing or something. It's just like, that's the way it is. That's the way this project works. It's unfortunate, but, you know, we need to read into every single PR and contribution.
And we have a question. So what is the license on all the code written and art created? If I see code or shaders I like, can I take it and reuse it?
Yes, you can, because this project is provided. You'll find the license here in the repo. So if you go here, you will notice there is actually just a regular Apache license 2.0. So it's a classic like open source license. And here you can see all the permissions and the limitations. So basically what this is saying is, yes, you can use it for what you want, even for commercial work. You can't trademark it. So you can't trademark what we made. And you just, I don't remember what this is. But yeah, go read it. It's all written in here. Anyway, it's an unmodified Apache 2 license. Which if you contribute something to the project, your something also becomes open source like this. So everybody else can also use it. So, you know, it's like you give it to me, I give it to you kind of things.
Great.
Yeah. We have another question. Can we vote for contributions?
Can we vote for contribution? What does this mean?
When you see a pull request, for instance, you can comment that or you can put thumbs up maybe if you want. So as we showed earlier in the pull requests, like let's open an example and you can see, you can like react to each other's comments or pull requests. You can put some comments. So somehow you can vote if you want. Like if you approve the idea, you feel free to mention that. Or if you have things to suggest or modify, you can do this as well, I guess.
Yeah,
I would say it's also good to do it in the forums.
Yeah,
like in official discussions, you can always
Yeah.
You can always do that. And by the way, I unlocked the cards, but I didn't unlock the threads.
So let's do it.
So
So I'll do it right now.
big
Yeah.
reveal.
This is all mine. Yes.
How it works.
Approve threads. Done.
And you are good.
Now we
Refresh
can
everyone.
discuss.
Press F5. Refresh.
Press F to refresh. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Awesome.
I think we're getting close to the end. Now it's really the
Yeah.
time for questions. If you have questions, kind of some final questions on the project.
I think we are answering the questions
Throughout.
throughout the call, the presentation. Sorry, I don't think that we have a new one. People are saying hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So, can I participate as UX UI designer? I think
Yeah,
you
you
can.
can.
There's a card for it. Yeah.
We actually I literally just unlocked the card. Where is this? In design narrative, right? So it's actually behind the tag, but you can see it here, UI wireframing. So that's one way to participate on the conception of the UI. You're gonna be challenging Shema.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're gonna be challenging this person.
Hi. No, we're not going to be challenging
Nah,
each
I'm
other.
joking,
We're
I'm
going
joking.
to be working with each other. We are going to be contributing in the same task.
Yeah.
I also see a question.
and-
I'll anticipate
Yeah.
you, Amel. No, you read it.
That's like will be totally single player. Was it the question you also
Yes.
were referring to?
Yeah, so Rahul is asking, will this game be totally single player? Yes, it will be. We didn't want to complicate things too much. It will be super challenging to make a multiplayer game, because if you think about it, every time you want to try it, you will have to, kind of like spin up like a server or anyway, have some players. So for this first edition, we wanted to keep things simple, and we wanted something that you can literally, like in the middle of the night. I mean, it's never night everywhere, but you can just download and play on your own machine from start to finish. So even if you're new to the game, you just download the project or the executable. And I don't know why I have Amel on screen as I'm talking. And you test the whole thing from start to finish. In the future, let's talk. Let's have a chat. Let's get to the end of this project, and then we can talk about the next steps and the next projects. Would be cool to make a multiplayer game for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, if we have other questions, the project is made in URP. I think we discussed it when we showed the shader graph.
Yes. If you
how
want to
do you
know which packages we're using, if you're curious, let's see. How do I show you this? I can show you the editor actually. Where is my package manager? Give me the packages. This one. Come on. You don't see my screen? There we go.
I'm seeing it now.
So we are using addressables. We still need to use to implement it for asset loading, and making builds faster. We're using Cinemachine, of course. It's an action adventure. You want a camera that feels nice.
Yeah.
Using the new input system, and actually, I have it here. I haven't used it for the demo, but the game supports gamepad, and we want to make it like a central way of controlling the game.
Awesome.
Hear the
So it will
sound?
be with the new input system?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Then we have Polybrush, ProBuilder, and ProGrids to model things and Whitebox, Settings Manager, Text Explorer, of course, for the UI. We have Timeline because we're going to make plenty of cutscenes. And yes, URP, and that's it. And then we have the integration with the two, how do you call it, IDE, to make code editing better.
Awesome.
Yes. This looks great.
Great. Thank you, Chiro, for showing us the package manager and all the packages that we are using. I think that one of the things in the contribution is that we people don't need to upgrade the packages and don't need to add packages, and we should take care of that just so that we don't have a lot of push requests. Push
Yeah.
request? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Pull
not the one to
requests.
talk about GitHub.
For
No,
request.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And if for some reason we need to upgrade any version of a package, we will definitely announce this and we will do it from our side. So yeah.
Anyway, we are again on 19.4, so we're not chasing updates, right? We want to upgrade only if it makes sense and if it doesn't break anything and if it brings us some kind of improvement in performance or bug fix. But I don't think we will have a lot of issues upgrading things. That's the nice thing of staying on LTS. And if we get to a point next year when it's like March and 2020 LTS is out, let's talk about it. Maybe we want to upgrade the game. But I would say let's focus on finishing it and wrapping it up, and then we'll talk about bringing it to a newer version, which will unlock, kind of like a playground to test everything that's new in 2020.4.3.
Definitely.
Yeah. We still have a lot of people. That's nice.
Wow, how many? If it
I'm
says,
not
I
sure
don't
about the number.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Any more questions? We're getting towards the end. We don't have much more to show for now in terms of the project.
Yeah, we remind you that we will be here in 2 weeks. We will have another live stream. We will talk about another feature, and we will show the steps that we've already finished and the new steps that we will do.
Yeah, the road is still long. That's why this show is called The Journey. It's not, Open Project the instant or Open Projects the day. It's the journey. So it's gonna take a while, which is the beauty of it. I think going back to one of the first questions that somebody asked at the very beginning, what can I learn from this thing? You could potentially not touch anything on the project and still learn from the whole journey and see how it goes, and just browse the forums and see the drama.
We will give updates every 2 weeks through this live stream. So if you just come from every 2 weeks, you can see what are the progress that we made.
Or just
so
watch
far.
this thing. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. You don't like
so
to
you
read?
Yeah.
We will vocalize it for you.
Vocalize it for you and give you the best of, I would say, of the 2 weeks.
Nice.
Yes. I guess we don't have any final questions. Is it 2D or 3D? It is 3D.
It's 3D, yes.
With the toon shading, like we've shown earlier. Okay,
Yes.
so I think
I'll put some more concept art in the meantime as we as we take the question, even if it has just my dirty face on screen. Now it has you as well. Let's play.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that looks so cute.
And by the way, this is the chef. This is the
Yeah.
back.
Put it
This is the what do you call it? The resident chef of the town that you're trying to kind of impress with your cooking skills. And this bunny here is the Bard hare, which is one of your companions. You're gonna fight these little critters in the forest as you're looking for ingredients and plants. And then this is an old concept art for alternative characters. This was an old concept art for kind of enemies and kind of Zelda style enemies.
Yeah.
And again, old concept art for the crypt. When I say old, I mean just the first version, but some of these evolved into the second version.
Yeah.
Cool. No more questions?
I think people are asking about the name, so you can contribute to the name in the thread. We are looking for the title right now. I remind everyone about that. Yeah, I think we don't have any other questions.
I guess. And of course, if you have any question, you can ask it as well in the forum on the threads. So feel free. this is not like the end of the questions. You
Yeah,
can still ask
actually,
questions.
we're gonna keep the stream going for another maybe 10 minutes, and then you can still hang out in the chat, and we're gonna actually answer some questions in the chat as well. But we're gonna just like turn off the cameras and start chilling, I guess. Somebody's asking, Code Monkey is asking if we will accept contributions made with Bolt. So we're deciding about Bolt. Could be that we introduce Bolt. The only thing I want to say is, if we don't upgrade the package, please don't contribute things with introducing Bolt into the project. We will make the decision, and then once we decide that we have Bolt, yes, we will accept contributions with Bolt. And I know that I think the doubt here is that things with Bolt are a bit hard to compare, because when you look at the comparison view and the comparison between two versions on GitHub, you don't immediately see what the code is doing, right? Because it's in the state machine, so you need to pull the code and check what's being done. While with code, you just immediately see like, okay, this line changed, they're doing this, right? So that's, I think, where the question is coming from. There's a thread on the forums. It's called State Machine, I think. Go make your arguments against or for Bolt in there, because that's where the discussion is happening.
Can we start a thread for that? Do you think it's possible to do that?
You want to start a thread for?
To discuss either Bolt or not Bolt?
I think it depends on
It's as easy as this.
Do you want to create a new thread?
I think
I
it
don't know.
depends.
I was wondering.
What we're trying to achieve it. If it becomes easier to use Bolt, for instance, for State Machine or any other feature, feel free to just say that in the thread of that feature, and maybe we can decide if for some reason we need to integrate that, right?
Yeah. And people can create the thread themselves and start the discussion. It's fine. We're not shutting down any thread. The only thing we ask you is, if you want to create a thread for a task, make sure that there's not one already. And when I say one already, I mean the ones that have the official tag. How do you know that? You go on Codex, you open a card, and then you see if there's a forum thread linked here. If there's a forum thread, that's gonna send you to the official thread.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. We're 3 minutes from an hour and a half. Do we still have people watching us, or am I speaking to myself and you?
I think we still have people
actually watching, which is
okay. And I don't know if you have still questions, but I think it's we can start wrapping up. Can you actually hear the music?
I had 750.
You had what?
Yeah, I'm lagging.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I saw the stream speed going down. Okay, I think we're gonna wind down, I guess.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, we will still be there in the chat, and as we said, you can still find us in the forums.
totally.
Okay.
I guess maybe it's the time to wrap up and say thank you all for joining us. And
Yeah,
That was really nice.
Thanks from Amel.
yeah,
Thanks from Shema.
Thank you, everyone.
And from me, goodbye everyone. Thanks for joining. It was super cool to stay together for such a long time. And again, we remind you, in 2 weeks we're gonna be live again. Same channel, same place. Open Projects: The Journey, episode 2.
yes.
Bye bye.
Bye.